But I think the thing that that impresses us, and we want to feed back to you, is that you were the same on stage as off stage, and within your own family also.
And there's also a thing about personal integrity.
Yes.
One of the things that has puzzled me as I moved from the corporate 30 years in corporate boardrooms to 30 years in professional Christianity,
Right.
is I could never understand why it is that there isn't the sanctity of a commitment that I took for granted in the boardrooms,
Right.
that I couldn't really find within the Christian community. Not that pastors aren't good guys, but there was no concept of what I call the sanctity of a commitment that just drives Wall Street, for example.
Right.
And I didn't really, that's puzzled me for years until I think it was you, the one that pointed out to me first. Second was 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5, where 7 qualities are listed.
Yes.
Add to your faith. Virtue is the King James, which doesn't rattle when you shake it. That's an abstraction. But it's in that list of 7 things. The first thing, add to your faith,
Virtue.
moral conduct.
Yes.
And I was stunned to realize that we don't teach, generally in the American culture, we don't teach personal integrity.
Yes.
The rest of the world takes that for granted, even in the boardrooms.
Yeah.
But in the Christian community, you don't find that. And it's not that they're bad people, they're just untrained. There's a term that you never hear them use. It's called fiduciary, a standard term among lawyers and professionals, but it's a word that most people are not familiar with unless they've been trained. And what's interesting, the Greek term for fiduciary is koinonia. So
Oh, right.
it's
Yes.
that we should be expert in. And one of the things that I was startled in, as you look, even before education and understanding and all these other, there's a list of 7. The first is moral conduct. And that's one of the reasons that was so touching to me as I got to know Kim. Because here was a guy that was obviously a guy with personal integrity, his candor, his transparency, not just us privately, to his audience.
Yeah.
That just stunned me. And I find it hard to find examples of that that match. And I'm not talking about theology here, I'm not talking about some theological position here. No, none of that.
Yeah.
Is that his personal integrity just bonded, from my point of view,
Yes.
bonded us overnight.
Well, certainly we've been around, you and I have been around people in ministry, you longer than I, by the way, been around ministers and people in ministry and so on and so forth. And there almost seems to be an overemphasis on add to your faith ministry content rather than moral conduct.
Yes.
And they're worried about what's the content of my life that the people see rather than what's going on inside. That's the moral conduct that ultimately will be the anchor that will sustain them in ministry. There's lots of people that are very talented, very gifted, have a lot to say and to give, but they might start strong, but they can't end strong because there isn't that foundation of moral character there.
The word, I find the word is integrity.
Yes.
That they have a backbone. And that's what's so lacking in our culture in general. That's what's lacking in our leadership, in politics. That's what makes Netanyahu such a breath of fresh air from Israel.
Right.
How distinctive he is from the previous leadership.
Right.
The early leadership had backbone. You look at Ben Gurion and Golda Meir. These people were committed. And he's anyway. The point, there's a factor there that is fundamental. And it really still surprises me to realize that the first 30 years of my executive career, my 30 years in the corporate boardrooms, I was spoiled because I was able to, I dealt with a group of people. They may not have been saved, they didn't know who Jesus was, but when they made a commitment, you could bank on it.
Right.
And a handshake was a commitment.
Right.
And they felt that their name, their reputation was something worth protecting and investing in.
Yes.
And that's a concept that seems to have evaporated in the boardrooms today too, by the way. That's, when I was there, that was a couple of decades ago. And of course, Wall Street's changed also.
Yes.
But the thing that still puzzles me, why it is within the Christian community, among the Christian leadership, there isn't that sanctity of commitment you generally find. And that's what's so refreshing when you encounter someone that has that backbone, that integrity.
Right.
And so I focus on that because a lot of people will quibble about this doctrine or that. That's not the issue. It's the personal integrity that
Absolutely.
overshadows that, in my opinion. So.
Yes, absolutely.